Hello and welcome to this week's Glasstire Top 5. It is the week of June 11th, 2020. I am Christina Rees.
And I'm Brandon Zech.
And we are at the Art Museum of Southeast Texas in Beaumont, which has recently reopened. Although we're shooting after closing hours, which is why we're sitting close to each other with no masks on. Normally, if you're going to be here, you will need a mask. But we'll get to the show in just a minute.
And this is a top 5 of spaces that have reopened so far. So reopened in some capacity, either with limited hours, like here at the Museum of Southeast Texas, by appointment, some other places, mostly institutions at this point also. We'll hit you with galleries at a later top 5. Number 5 this week is the newly reopened Grace Museum in Abilene. This show reopened with the Grace at the beginning of this month. It's a show of works by David McManaway called Cult of the Commonplace. And it opened in February, I believe, and it's going to be up through January. So if you don't feel comfortable going to a museum right now or going to the Grace, that's fine. There's plenty of time for you to see this show.
Right, so this is a solo show by David McManaway, who's a longtime Dallas-based artist. He died in 2010. Very prolific. He moved to Dallas from Chicago in 1959. He showed a lot, and he was in 2 Whitney Biennials. But he's known for these assemblage boards, he called them Jomo boards, I believe is how he pronounced it. And he quit painting in 59 when he got to Dallas and started doing these big assemblage sort of pieces. And I think there's a number of them in this show. This is one of our early tours that we got in, one of our early 5-minute tours. And the curator, Judy Tedford Deaton, who I'm a big fan of, put together the show and is the one who walks us through the show.
It can sometimes be hard for an artist to remain part of the conversation once they pass away. And I think this show is an effort to keep him as a part of this Texas history. Number 4 this week is 3 shows, 3 artist in residence exhibitions at Artpace in San Antonio. So it's 3 different artists as per usual. It's Milagros de la Torre, Daniel Ramos, and Carlos Castro Arias. So we actually recently published a review of it by Neil Farso, but this show kind of was opening right as everything was shutting down. So it's likely if you're in San Antonio, you haven't had a chance to see this yet. And Artpace is reopened at the beginning of this month again, and they're open by appointment now.
Yeah, so because they're open by appointment, if you make arrangements to go, you're not going to be in there with a lot of other people. You'll get to see this show probably pretty much on your own, or these 3 shows on your own. The 3 different shows, Neil, when he goes into it, he talks about how Artpace and its space really gives itself over to kind of the immersive experience, and I believe that all 3 of these artists have really played with that. I know Milagros de la Torre does. She's a New York-based artist. She takes the subject of faces. She has a condition that's basically face blindness, but in mapping faces and going into the idea of surveillance culture and how faces are mapped and used in slightly sinister ways, that's kind of the point of her show. Daniel Ramos is, his kind of immersive installation is basically retracing and bringing the objects from his family journey from Mexico to Chicago. Carlos Castro Arias, his show, it's called I Came to Set the World on Fire. Churches, fire, ashes, and flames. It's kind of the idea of annihilation and rebirth.
There's a lot of art that has become accidentally very relevant.
That is absolutely true. That is happening every single day. Number 3 on our list is at the Museum of Fine Arts Houston, which was the first of the big museums to reopen, and we were there during its opening weekend, and we went through the entire museum just a couple of weeks ago and got to see some shows that we had not been able to see when the museum closed down in March. And one that we both really liked is Through an African Lens, Sub-Saharan Photography from the museum's collection, which is part of PhotoFest 2020. So these are all photographs in the MFAH's fantastic collection. This is all Sub-Saharan photographers or photography, some sort of connection to Sub-Saharan Africa, and from the 1950s to the present day. And I thought it was, we've got Mali and Zimbabwe and Cameroon and South Africa and Senegal, Nigeria. I thought it was fantastic, and I liked there was it almost had a chronology to it. These are great portraits. A lot of them are portraits.
This is a testament also to just not only how good the Museum of Fine Arts Houston's photography collection is, which was kind of built from the ground up by Ann Tucker, one curator, but to how well this work fits within the history of all of the photography that the museum owns, and it's wonderful to see that the museum has so many of these pieces. Number 2 this week is, it's kind of an odd pick. It's a little different. It's at the San Antonio Museum of Art, which was maybe the second large museum in Texas to reopen. They reopened at the end of May, but it is the Taihu Rock. So recently, Dr. Ruben Cordova wrote about this rock for us. It's from the city of Wuxi, China, which is a sister city of San Antonio. This rock, I mean,
It's now permanently at San Antonio Museum of Art, and it's installed outside. It's 12 feet high.
It's not just any rock. It's 12 feet high. It's
Certainly not.
6.5 tons.
Yeah.
But perhaps more importantly, it has such a beautiful sculptural quality to it because it's been eroded over however many years you want to say by water. So it has a really unique form and a really unique texture to it and just a beauty to it.
So these sort of rocks, and especially from this particular region, Lake Taihu, I believe is how it's pronounced, are highly prized across China. So showcasing these rocks, picking these rocks out and showcasing them as a tradition in China. And the museum in Wuxi also has loaned 26 pieces from its own collection and for a show inside the San Antonio Museum of Art, if you want to do that. That one is called Elegant Pursuits, the Art of China's Educated Elite. And Ruben Cordova has added that into his review as well. So, that's a lot, it's a lot of work from scholars, studios in China from 1400 to 1900. So,
and a lot of that work has also never been exhibited outside of China. So this is its first kind of visit, definitely its first time in the US. And number 1, we are here at the Art Museum of Southeast Texas in Beaumont. So this is maybe, Christina, yours and my first trip out of town to see a museum. Definitely in the past 2.5 months. We wanted to come to the Art Museum of Southeast Texas because there are 2 great shows. We're sitting in front of a wonderful show of works by Patrick Turk, the Houston-based artist. The show is called Higher Planes, and right next door, you know, the Art Museum of Southeast Texas, a lot of times the gallery space is kind of divided into 2 shows. There's a show by Kana Harada called Celestial Garden. This show of Patrick Turk's work, there's some new work, some work, actually quite a bit of work from 2010 to 2012.
these light boxes, which I had never seen before and you had not seen before either.
You'll actually be able to see, they photograph really well, but they have a ton of presence in person. So these light boxes are Patrick Turk's kind of signature all over, almost combative with itself collage style, but they're behind, they're in light boxes and behind these kind of fisheye lenses. So the lenses either magnify or, you know, reduce or obscure or are just straight glass. And they make the collage look even more funky because the collage itself is so busy, just like the pieces that are behind us. The collages have dimension, and then these light boxes just distort it in a really weird and interesting way. And then the show by Kana Harada, she has shown recently in Dallas quite a little bit. She had a show at Tally Dunn Gallery. Her work, it shares elements like the kind of cut paper quality with Patrick Turk's work, but she uses different materials. So it almost looks like 3D printed pieces, but they're cut paper or they're cut foam. So there's a beautiful, wonderfully large installation that Mariah Rockefeller, the curator here, said weighs like 5 pounds.
She is originally from Tokyo, but she's lived in Dallas lived and worked in Dallas for the last 20 years. So you have all summer to see these 2 shows. These 2 are up until September 13th. And it was not crowded today when we came, although there were visitors. So
and there are limited hours for the museum during this time.
They shut at 3, so we're shooting this right after 3 p.m. But yeah, I think it's kind of a nice little day trip out of Houston.
Yeah, and they have hand sanitizer. They're taking your temperature.
Sure do.
You have to wear your mask. There's no choice. So you should come to Beaumont if you can.
Why not?
Take a day trip. You deserve it. Are we saying it?
I think we
have to.
I think we should. Oops. Oh shit.